We are back grading another one of your Dynasty teams. Okay.
Another one.
And we are grading Captain Barney's team today, but
Captain Barney.
and we're going to say some moves that we would make potentially if it was our team. We're going to give some grades, some advice. If you want your team considered, there's actually a really simple way to submit your team for consideration.
Yep.
In the description below, you will find a link to our Discord. All you have to do is join our Discord.
That's right.
There is a text channel that says Dynasty Team Grades. That's where you would submit your team to be considered. Now, we're not going to be able to grade everyone's team, but maybe it will be yours next
maybe on
video.
there.
Who knows?
You could be Captain Barnaby. Or
Well,
Barney. Sorry.
Captain Barney.
Captain Barney Barnaby.
Shout out to Captain Barney. This is his team. Context, it is a 12-team Superflex PPR league.
Correct.
And this is their second year. You can now see the team on the screen. So overall thoughts, let's just go position by position, Badake, and let's start with the quarterback room. Yeah. What's your thoughts of this quarterback room?
Look, I don't mind the quarterback room. Russell Wilson, Trey Lance, and then you have Jimmy G. What's good about this is that you locked in that 49ers quarterback room just in case Trey Lance doesn't start and you have Jimmy G for a couple weeks or whatever the case may be. And then Baker Mayfield. It may not seem like anything right now, but at the moment, it looks like Deshaun Watson might get suspended for 8 games, and you can have a guy that can start for the next 8 weeks in the start of the season. And that could be your window to sell, or you can sell now. Just two different opportunities. But I think the quarterback room is good enough to compete and move forward.
Something I was going to say on Baker is like I view whenever Deshaun gets suspended, I view that time period as the Browns need Baker and Baker needs the Browns at that point. I know there's a lot of tension, but if he really wants one last audition for a team, then those suspension games are where he's going to need to shine. And
maybe sell Baker to the Deshaun Watson guy. If that's possible.
But I doubt that person really wants to start Baker in Dynasty right now. But it might be smart to hold off until you see those games and you see if there is hype midseason around him getting moved, or maybe another team investing into him next year. However, I do think that this quarterback room is a real strong point of your team. And let me say this. When you look at this team, there are some very clear strong points.
Yeah.
And there are some very clear weaknesses.
Oh, boy.
Russ, I'm not worried about Russ. I think he can play a long time.
Agreed.
He's got that TB12 method where he takes care of his body like no one else.
That Mamba mentality. Yeah.
And like you said beforehand, having Jimmy G and Trey Lance is massive. I just traded for Trey Lance yesterday. I don't know if you saw that trade, but I traded for him yesterday. And one of the big things I really needed was Jimmy G, but I didn't get the deal done with Jimmy G. So I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I don't have Jimmy G.
Oh boy.
in my quarterback room with Trey. So I like that. Quarterback room, honestly, I don't think you need to make any moves. At this point, I think it's a hold for me.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the running backs then. There is no way to sugarcoat this. It's rough.
There's no
This
one.
is a rough running back room. Outside of Cam Akers, there is nobody.
You are stretching right now.
Hines certainly is not a starter. And there are multiple running backs on this team that in a 12-man league, I would say should be on the waiver wire, right?
100%.
I mean, Phillips, Williams, Jackson. It's it's rough. There's no we have to be honest with the condition of this team currently. It's bad.
Yeah,
with the running backs.
It's definitely bad, and I think this is probably the biggest weak point on this team. I think if there was one place I had to say you need help, and this is it, in my opinion. As much as I love Cam Akers, he can't run the team, and I know everyone's worried about that Achilles injury. I'm personally not. Maybe Zach.
It's split. It's split in the community. I am very much I don't want to own Akers, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I'll give some ideas of what you could do if you feel the same way. Right
now, it just feels like you have to wait out. I mean, you do have the one-on-one in this year, which means that you're going to get Brees. I mean, unless Brees falls into the worst spot possible, and he shouldn't be at the one-on-one, but at the moment, it looks like you have to take Brees, and even if Brees goes in. Yeah, even if Brees goes to a bad spot, you can get 2 running backs if you really want to, if Kenneth Walker lands in a good spot as well. You have the 101 and the 104, but doesn't mean you should be taking both of them. So you do have some hope moving forward in the running back position, but that's the thought process right now. I can talk to you about a couple trade options, but I think it will be better towards the end of the video to give you everyone's thought process.
And if you guys see us looking down, we actually have the teams on our phone.
On our phones.
Looking at them. So the good news is, like I said, the running back room is terrible, but the 101, I mean, lock in Brees. And if you don't go running back at 104, I would suggest maybe the 207 to try and grab a Jerome Ford, a Brian Robinson, Zamir White, Rashad White. Obviously, you want to go best player available, but if it makes sense for you there, here's a trade idea. Look, if you're watching this video, Captain Barney, and you're saying, yeah, look, I'm skeptical on Akers as well, then here's an idea that you can maybe do, because I personally, I just want to avoid the risk of Cam Akers. I know that he came back, but no running back has been elite after an Achilles injury. It's just not happened in history, and he's going to have to break that mold. So I don't want to bet on that. I'm happy to be wrong, but here's some trade ideas I would throw out. Okay. If you can move Akers straight up for the following guys, I would do it. Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson. Okay. You could also consider moving Akers and potentially getting picks back in return for the following guys. Saquon Barkley. I think most people in the community would have Akers ahead of him. Nick Chubb, A.J. Dillon, Leonard Fournette. So maybe Nick Chubb and Fournette might not be the ideal guys with how long I think it might take for your team to compete. But I think Saquon and A.J. Dillon, you could get picks back with Cam Akers and potentially significant picks. So those are moves that I would consider with Akers, just because I mean, look, and also Akers is a guy that I would argue, so if you're slightly worried, it would be better to have him as like your third running back on your team. But in this scenario, you're relying on Akers to carry your running back room, and I'm worried about that. But is there other moves that you wanted to suggest? Because I know you're high on Akers.
Yeah, I'm high on Akers. That's the problem. I'm happy to wait and stay. I think the thought process with your team, in my opinion, is you are waiting until this draft. You're waiting until this draft until 2023, because that's when you can truly start competing. After that, you have the foundational pieces in the running back. I mean, the quarterback, in the tight end. And you do have some good pieces in the wide receiver, which I guess we can talk about now. Really just Chase Claypool and Michael Gallup that we see here. I'm not a huge fan of Rondale Moore. I believe he'll be, wide receiver 3 with the Cardinals. I do believe they'll probably draft somebody. I know Zach likes him a little bit more. Laviska falls off. I mean, maybe he does get traded to the Chiefs, and maybe you have some hope. But other than that, there's not much wide receivers. And I think for the wide receiver class, with all those 2023 picks, they'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 first round picks in the 2023 class. There's some good talent in the wide receiver room there. Yeah, and as much as it sucks to wait, I think this year you're just going to not win. Can I throw an idea out there? Just as we're doing this, I'm thinking to myself, like, what is a realistic timeline for this team to compete? And everyone's always going to comment and say, no, this team can compete if all these moves happen, which are unrealistic. So I don't think this is a team that's ready to compete, honestly. So maybe we should be moving Russell Wilson. I know that sounds crazy, but maybe if you can get multiple firsts for Russell, you should be considering it. Or maybe if you can do a lateral move to a Justin Fields and get some pieces back as well. Okay. You get Zach Wilson and a first for Russell Wilson, because I know we're not worried about Russell Wilson long term, but if your team is ready to compete in, let's say, 3 years or 2 years, then Russell Wilson's value will be less and he will be older. So while we're not worried about him, it's just an idea I want to throw out. Like, honestly, if I could move Russell Wilson, I love Justin Fields. So if I can move Russell Wilson, get Justin Fields in a second, or like, I think I would be really intrigued by that, second or a first. I think I can see it. I think I'll probably try to do a different way. I think if I were to do something like that, knowing that I'm not going to win and compete and may not have these players to even fill in correctly, I think I will do that with Cam Akers then. Why not try to get a first for Cam Akers, whether it's 2023 or maybe in this year?
Makes sense.
And just say, you know what? I know I'm not going to win. I don't need to fill in a running back position, or I can just pull in one of these running backs in Jackson or Roundtree, even though they're not going to give me any points. But
how about this?
I'm stacking on picks.
The 103 for Akers, and then you just take a shot on Walker. So you just go double running back. You go Brees and Walker, and then the 104 you grab a wide receiver in this year's class. I mean that
you can try to do that. I mean
that would be ideal in my opinion.
You have to find a guy that likes Akers high that's willing to give up a top 5 pick. That's the problem.
There's a lot of people who value him way ahead of like Gibson, and we've seen people who have Gibson pretty highly valued. So I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to move the 207 and Akers for the 103.
Maybe you can do something like that. But if I were you, I'm stacking on picks. I would rather keep Russell Wilson.
We're kind of just spitballing and throwing out brainstorming ideas.
100%.
I hope this is good. There's a lot of different things you could try.
Yeah. But yeah,
let's talk about wide receivers. Yeah.
Yeah. Chase Claypool, DJ Chark, Michael Gallup. These are good foundational pieces, but they're not your wide receiver one. Michael Gallup. I mean, the expectation is that they're gonna. I mean, all the talks right now that they're gonna draft a wide receiver. The Cowboys could, draft a wide receiver. Not saying they're going to. But, I mean, a 5-year contract means is something. DJ Chark on a 1 year and Chase Claypool, if they get a good quarterback that can throw the ball deep, then Chase Claypool could be something. But there's no true alpha here. I think that's my problem. No true alpha one on your team.
I agree. And it's pretty unlikely that you can flip Claypool for a 23 first, but I would be looking at doing that. Honestly, like I just keep looking at the team and I keep thinking to myself, I could win some games, but this isn't a championship team. So for me, honestly, everyone is on the block, and I'm seeing how many firsts I can get from this squad. But you don't have to make certain moves. Rondale feels like a huge hold for me. I do think Rondale is going to be way more valuable this time next year than he is right now. So Rondale's a big hold. Outside of that, I think most of these pieces can be moved in this room. Let's talk about the tight ends. This is good news. Like we said, some real strong points. Some real down points, but this is a strong point, right?
This is another one.
Mark Andrews is the tight end too. In Dynasty, I mean, no depth, but I do like the John Bates pick as well. He's got some sneaky upside. So, let me throw a thought out there, okay?
Okay.
And again, it's just another idea. We don't have to do it. Honestly, you could leave Andrews, and Andrews is probably going to fit your timeline in 3 years when you're ready to compete. So you do not have to move him. However, what if we could tier down and get future draft capital?
Exactly. So, that's where I'm going too.
What if we could make Mark Andrews and flip him for Noah Fant and a 23 first? What if we could do that? Mark Andrews for Dalton Schultz and a 23 first. Yep. I mean, I think these are realistic trades that you could potentially make happen. And the tight end position is it's up, it's down. And I think Fant is a really good person to target with a 23 first because I think he's being undervalued because of the current trade. So
okay, and I completely agree. That was one of my thought process. Tear down, get somebody. Noah Fant, Albert O, get some pieces back. A Dawson Knox if you want, whatever the case may be, because you do have
a name that just came to mind. How about David Njoku? You might be able to get a first and a second if you tear down there.
And there's just so much potential and opportunity here with trying to sell and then stacking picks. But at the same time, I mean, we always say this, you may not hit on those picks. So be prepared to do that.
No, you might not.
You do have the guaranteed guys. But I mean, but Zach is right. By the time you get there, these guys are older. The value drops. We don't know what that looks like.
Also, I was going to say is like, as you get draft capital, you have, let's say you sell Andrews, you get a 23 first, and then, next year, you're looking to compete. You have a bunch of picks that you can play around with. Well, you can use that first to tier up at a tight end at that point if you wanted to. It gives you a lot more flexibility. Yeah. Another idea that I just had, and this is honestly, this is break glass. Okay. If you're watching this and you're saying to yourself, man, I actually want to blow it up. Okay. How about Mark Andrews? You move him for Brevin Jordan and 2 firsts. Okay. Now, if you're ready to compete, and those firsts could be in 2024. They don't have to be 2023. But if you're ready to compete after 2023, you then have 2 first-round picks to go get whoever is the most elite tight end at that point. Yeah, so
that makes sense. Or, I mean...
And I think Brevin has a lot of upside. People are sleeping on him.
I think you can do that. You can get Brevin and then draft, if you do keep the 207, draft Trey McBride. Keep him. Hopefully he lands in a good spot. Maybe after the draft happens, you know where he's going. Hopefully he's still going there. You can get him.
You also don't need to move Andrews, and you can still draft McBride at the 207.
Exactly.
Give yourself more flexibility.
Exactly. So I think it's a good. You have great opportunity here to move forward and build this team. It's just going to take some time and patience.
It's not ideal right now. It's very much a it reminds you a little bit of an orphan team, a team that you would take over and you think, man, what happened to my running backs?
Yeah.
What happened to my wide receivers? But with time, whatever you decide to do with the amount of ideas that we've thrown out there, commit to whatever path you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're rebuilding, commit to the rebuild. Really commit
Agreed.
to it. But overall, I gave this team a B-. I don't think it's in a fantastic place. I don't think it's ready to win.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's always people in the YouTube comments who are going to disagree.
That's okay.
But I don't think this is a team that's ready to win. So it's a B-. Yeah. But there's picks. There's ways to build this team for the future.
Yeah, I gave the same grade. I said C plus B-. So you're in that range. You just got to draft well. All man. Right. Keep your picks. Try not to sell your 2023s and maybe stack on some more 2023 and you'll be all right.
All right. Let us know in the comments below if you agree or disagree. And maybe your team is next. Who knows? Join the Discord.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.